The damp stone cell reeked of disinfectant and fear. Axel Morgan woke with a pounding headache, the metal cuffs digging into his wrists. The dim light filtering through the energy barrier barely illuminated the moss-covered walls of the Black Moon prison. He tested the chains, hearing them clank against the stone floor. Former Galactic Security Force officer, now prisoner of the Dravak cartel. What a promotion. His military training kicked in as he assessed his surroundings. Black Moon was notorious, a converted mining facility on a desolate moon, repurposed by the Dravak cartel as a detention center for high-value prisoners. The air tasted stale, recycled too many times through failing purifiers. A movement from the shadowy corner of the cell caught his attention. A figure unfurled from the darkness, eyes reflecting the minimal light like polished amber discs. Not human eyes. The famous GSF commander finally wakes. Came a voice, distinctly feminine, but with a growling undertone. I was beginning to think they'd damaged your brain during capture. As she stepped into the light, Axel's jaw tightened. A lunar eye. The canid-like aliens with their characteristic silver-gray fur and upright, pointed ears were unmistakable. This female stood tall, almost his height, her athletic frame covered in a prison jumpsuit that did little to hide her natural grace. A long scar ran from her right ear down to her jawline, the fur never having grown back properly. Sharing a cell with a moondog. Perfect. Axel muttered, using the derogatory term humans had coined for the species during the early conflicts. Her lips pulled back, revealing impressive canines. And I'm trapped with a hairless ape who reeks of fear. I don't fear your kind. Axel spat back, rattling his chains as he tried to stand straighter. You should, she growled, circling him slowly. Your people invaded our moons, pillaged our sacred sites, and then had the audacity to claim we were the aggressors. Your clan attacked 3 human outposts unprovoked. Axel countered, keeping his eyes on her. I lost friends to your kind's ambushes. She snorted derisively. Unprovoked? Your mining operations were poisoning our water tables. Those outposts were military installations disguised as research facilities. GSF doesn't target civilians. We don't operate that way. Tell that to the pups who lost their parents in the Callisto bombardment. Axel fell silent. The Callisto incident had been a black mark on GSF's record, officially labeled a targeting error. But rumors persisted about deliberate civilian targeting to demoralize the Lunar Eye resistance. I wasn't at Callisto, he finally said. But you wear their uniform. You enforce their lies. She moved closer, her scent, something like pine and ozone, filling his nostrils. My name is Kira. Remember it. Human. Because if we get out of here, I'll be the last thing you see before joining your friends. Charming. Axel replied dryly. I'm Axel Morgan. And if we get out of here, I'll be sure to find you a nice, comfortable GSF cell instead of this dump. Their argument escalated, voices rising until a guard pounded on the energy barrier, ordering silence. But Kira was beyond listening. In a sudden movement, she lunged forward, her restraints just long enough to allow her to reach him. Her teeth sank into his forearm, breaking skin. Pain shot through Axel's arm, acting on pure instinct, perhaps the most primal human reflex. He twisted and bit down hard on her exposed shoulder. They froze, locked together in this bizarre embrace. Her blood tasted metallic, but sweeter than human blood. Her eyes widened in shock, pupils dilating to nearly consume the amber irises. Slowly, they separated, both breathing heavily. Kira touched her shoulder, staring at him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "You bit me back," she whispered. "You bit me first." Axel replied defensively, examining the puncture wounds on his arm. Something had changed in her posture. The hostility remained, but it was now mixed with curiosity, respect. "No human has ever responded that way," she said, her voice softer. "They cry, they scream, they threaten. They never answer in kind. Well, I'm not most humans." Clearly. She tilted her head, studying him. "Do you know what you just did in lunar eye culture?" "Defended myself?" A strange sound emerged from her throat. It took him a moment to recognize it as laughter. "You initiated a blood bond, an acknowledgement of equals." She showed her shoulder. "By drawing blood in return instead of submitting or escalating to weapons. You've engaged in an ancient ritual. My ancestors would consider us battle-bound now." "That's not what I intended," Axel said carefully, unsure whether this development was positive or problematic. Intention is irrelevant. The act is what matters. She sat back, her posture noticeably less aggressive. "The guards change in 30 minutes. The night shift is understaffed. 2 guards instead of 4. Axel raised an eyebrow. "And you're telling me this because blood-bound warriors are obligated to fight together, not against each other." She leaned forward. "And I've been working on these restraints for 3 days. By tonight, I can break free. You interested in upgrading our accommodations, Commander Morgan?" The guard rotation happened exactly as Kira predicted. The night guards were sloppier too, one of them getting close enough to the energy barrier while delivering their meager rations. Kira had indeed managed to weaken her restraints. And when she broke free, her movements were a blur of efficient violence. The guard never stood a chance. Axel watched in reluctant admiration as she disabled him with a precise strike to the throat, then used his security chip to deactivate the energy barrier. The second guard raised his weapon, but Axel, still chained, called out a warning. It distracted the guard just long enough for Kira to close the distance and take him down. Not bad for a moondog. Axel commented as she used the guard's key to unlock his restraints. "Not bad for someone who's been starved for a week," she countered, tossing him a stunner she'd retrieved from one of the guards. "We need to move quickly. They'll notice the missed check-in within 20 minutes. They moved through the dimly lit corridors of the prison, Kira leading with an unerring sense of direction. Her night vision, far superior to his, proved invaluable as they navigated the labyrinthine facility. Twice they had to hide from patrol units, pressing into alcoves, bodies uncomfortably close. "How did you end up here?" Axel whispered during one such moment, her fur tickling his chin as they squeezed into a maintenance shaft. "I was investigating Dravac weapons shipments," she replied softly. "My clan suspected they were supplying both sides of our conflict. I got too close to proving it." The revelation gave Axel pause. If true, it suggested a more complex situation than the straightforward human-lunar eye conflict that had been raging for years. They reached a lower level that opened into a vast hangar bay. Several small ships were docked, primarily transport vessels and a few guard skiffs. "Can you fly one of these?" Kira asked, eyeing the ships. Axel allowed himself a small smile. "Flight instructor for 3 years at the GSF Academy. I can fly anything with thrusters." "Good, because I'm better at breaking into them than piloting them." True to her word. Kira managed to bypass the security on a small, sleek skiff primarily used for patrol duties. The ship's systems came online with a low hum as Axel took the pilot's seat, familiarizing himself with the controls. "We've got company," Kira warned, nodding toward a group of guards rushing into the hangar. "Time to show me those piloting skills." Axel didn't need further encouragement. He engaged the thrusters, the skiff lurching forward before smoothly accelerating toward the hangar's atmospheric shield. Warning shots from the guards' weapons glanced off the ship's hull. "Hang on," he advised, pushing the throttle to maximum. They burst through the shield, the sudden change in pressure causing the ship to shudder violently before stabilizing into the moon's thin atmosphere. But they weren't clear yet. Alarms blared as the prison's defense systems activated. Turrets swiveled, tracking their escape vessel. "They're launching pursuit ships," Kira warned, looking at the sensor readouts. "Let them come," Axel replied, a familiar calm settling over him as he guided the skiff into a series of evasive maneuvers. The small ship was nimble, responding beautifully to his commands as they weaved between the jagged rock formations that covered the moon's surface. The pursuit ships were faster, but their pilots lacked either Axel's skill or his desperation. One by one, he led them into tight spaces, forcing them to slow or risk collision, gradually increasing the distance between them. "We need to break orbit," Kira said, studying the navigational display. "There's a neutral trading post, Vega Station, 3 hours from here at maximum speed." The Doglike avoided. Too many witnesses. "Vega it is," Axel agreed, plotting the course. As they climbed higher, the moon's meager gravity releasing its hold. A final pursuer managed to lock onto them. Energy weapons fire streaked past their viewport. Without warning, Kira reached over and seized the controls, sending them into a stomach-lurching spiral. The pursuing vessel overshot them, and before its pilot could compensate, she had flipped their position. "Weapons?" she asked tersely. "Targeting online," Axel confirmed, locking onto the other ship's propulsion system. A precisely aimed shot disabled the pursuer without destroying it completely. "Where did you learn that maneuver?" "Hunting skyfish on Europa," she replied with a hint of pride. They changed direction faster than any ship. As they broke free of the moon's orbit, the vastness of space welcomed them. For a moment, both sat in silence, the reality of their escape sinking in. "We actually did it," Axel finally said. "Don't celebrate yet," Kira cautioned. "We're fugitives now, both of us, and the Doglike have a long reach." She was right. Of course. But as Axel set course for Vega Station, he couldn't help but feel that something significant had changed. The bite marks on his arm throbbed dully, a reminder of the strange bond that had formed between predator and prey, captor and captive, alien and human. The journey to Vega Station passed in relative silence, both fugitives taking turns at the controls while the other rested. When they weren't focused on piloting, they exchanged information, Axel explaining GSF protocols and human diplomatic structures, Kira detailing lunar I-clan hierarchies and their spiritual connection to natural satellites. "Your people call us moondogs, but our relationship with moons is deeper than worship," she explained. "We believe moons are cosmic balancers, objects caught between the gravity of planets and the freedom of open space. They teach us to find equilibrium between chaos and order." Axel listened more attentively than he might have before their escape. His military training had included only the basics of lunar I culture, mostly focused on their combat tactics and weaknesses. Vega Station appeared on their view screen, a massive construct of interconnected modules. solar arrays extending like metallic petals. Being a neutral trading post, it maintained a policy of minimal questions, ideal for fugitives seeking temporary sanctuary. We'll need identities, Axel noted as they approached the docking protocols. The Dravac will have distributed our biometrics. Kira reached into a hidden pocket in her jumpsuit, producing a small data chip. Contacts, she explained. Every operative has them. You're an operative? Not just a clan warrior. She gave him a measured look. Intelligence Division. I told you I was investigating weapons shipments. Axel felt a newfound respect for his companion. GSF intelligence operatives underwent rigorous training. He imagined Lunar Eye standards were similarly demanding. They docked without incident. Kira's contact, a four-armed Viridian merchant named Soren, providing them with temporary identities, civilian clothing, and a secure room in the station's residential section. The merchant asked no questions, but accepted Kira's promise of future favor with a knowing nod. Your wound needs treatment, Kira observed once they were alone, gesturing to Axel's arm where her bite had left a distinct semicircle of punctures. So does yours, he countered. Noting the similar wound on her shoulder, she retrieved a medkit from the supplies Soren had provided. Lunar Eye saliva contains mild anticoagulants and trace neurotoxins, she explained clinically. Nothing lethal to humans, but it can cause localized numbness and, if untreated, scarring. Charming evolutionary adaptation, Axel commented, wincing as she applied a stinging antiseptic to the wound. Says the species that sweat toxins through their skin, she retorted, her touch gentler than her words. Your bite lacks venom but makes up for it with brute force. The pressure was impressive. There was something in her tone that made Axel glance up, catching an expression that might have been admiration before it disappeared behind her usual reserve. After treating their wounds, they focused on their next steps, using the room's secure terminal. They began researching recent Dravac activities and any connection to the alleged weapons shipments to both human and Lunar Eye forces. Look at this, Kira said after several hours, pointing to shipping manifests she'd accessed through what Axel suspected were less than legal methods. Identical weapons shipments, different labeling. One set marked for GSF special requisition, another for delivery to border moon outposts, predominantly populated by my people. Axel leaned closer, examining the data. These requisition codes, they're not standard GSF format. Someone's using forged authorization. Further investigation revealed connections to not just the Dravac cartel, but a shadowy organization called Vex, a name Axel recognized from GSF intelligence briefings as a suspected arms dealer with political aspirations. They're profiting from both sides. Kira growled, her ears flattening against her head in anger. Extending the conflict while selling us the means to destroy each other. Classic war profiteering, Axel agreed grimly. But this goes beyond profit. Look at these communication logs. They're manipulating diplomatic channels too. False flag operations, misinformation. The evidence mounted. The conflict between humans and the Lunar Eye had been systematically inflamed and sustained by third parties with financial and political interests in preventing peace. Incidents like the Callisto bombardment, which Axel had defended as a tragic accident, now appeared in a more sinister light. We need to get this information to people who can act on it, Axel said, downloading the data to a secure drive. My former commander, Hayes, has direct access to the Earth Council. If we can reach him, and I need to inform the clan elders. Kira added, But neither of us can simply walk into our respective headquarters. We're fugitives, remember? There's an Earth embassy on Proxima Station, Axel suggested. It's 3 days from here. Commander Hayes conducts monthly inspections there. It's where regional GSF operations are coordinated. Kira's expression remained dubious. And you think he'll just believe you? A fugitive who escaped prison with a Lunari terrorist? He knows me. Axel insisted. We served together for 8 years. And with this evidence, he held up the data drive. Evidence that implicates elements of your own government. Kira pointed out. Humans don't exactly have a reputation for addressing internal corruption efficiently. Before Axel could respond, an alert from the room's security system interrupted them. The exterior corridor sensors had detected multiple approaching signatures. Trouble, Kira said tersely, already moving to gather their essentials. Axel checked the security feed. 6 hostiles, armed. Not station security. Their weapons are military grade. Doglike found us sooner than expected. Kira's ears swiveled, detecting sounds Axel couldn't hear. They're preparing breaching charges. They had seconds at most. Axel's gaze fell on the room's environmental controls. The ventilation system, he suggested. These old stations have maintenance tunnels running alongside. Kira nodded, already prying open the access panel. They squeezed into the narrow passage just as an explosion rocked their former hideout. Moving quickly through the dusty confines of the maintenance tunnel, they navigated by the station schematics Axel had memorized during their research. We need transport off station, Kira whispered as they emerged in a lower-level utility area. The commercial docks will be watched. Axel reasoned. But there's a maintenance bay for station vessels. We might be able to requisition one for an emergency repair outside the station. Kira's amber eyes gleamed in the dim light. I like how you think, Commander. Their path to the maintenance bay was indirect, avoiding main corridors and security checkpoints. Twice they nearly encountered Doglike search parties. Kira's acute hearing giving them precious seconds to find concealment. The maintenance bay was sparsely staffed, a blessing and a challenge. Fewer people to evade, but less activity to hide within. They observed from a service alcove, formulating a plan. There. Axel indicated a small transport vessel undergoing routine checks. Atmospheric capability, FTL equipped, and nearly ready for deployment. How do we get past the technicians? Axel considered their options. We could wait until shift change, but no time. Kira interrupted, her eyes fixed on a monitor displaying security feeds. They're implementing a station-wide search protocol, sector by sector. We have minutes at most. A more direct approach was needed. Axel noticed a control panel for the bay's environmental systems. Cover your ears, he warned before triggering the emergency depressurization alarm. Instantly, deafening klaxons filled the bay. The technicians, following safety protocols, moved quickly toward the designated shelter areas. In the confusion, Axel and Kira slipped aboard the transport vessel. The ship's systems were already active, requiring minimal preparation for launch. Maintenance override protocols, Axel explained as he bypassed the launch authorization. Standard GSF design feature for emergency situations. Convenient, Kira remarked, securing herself in the co-pilot seat. I'm starting to think your GSF has too many security back doors. A point I'll be sure to raise at the next staff meeting. Axel replied dryly. Initiating launch sequence. The bay doors opened automatically as part of the emergency protocol, allowing them to guide the vessel out into space with minimal resistance. Only when they were clearing the station's defense perimeter did alarms begin to sound, indicating an unauthorized departure. "They're scrambling interceptors," Kira noted, monitoring the communication channels. "Hold tight," Axel advised, pushing the transport to its limits. The vessel shuddered as it accelerated beyond its intended specifications. "We just need to reach minimum safe distance for FTL." Weapons fire from the interceptors flashed past them, too distant yet for accurate targeting. Axel weaved the transport through a field of debris, remnants of an old satellite array, forcing their pursuers to slow their approach. "FTL in 10 seconds. Kira counted down, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. The stars stretched into lines as the FTL drive engaged, the sudden acceleration pressing them into their seats. The familiar disorientation of faster-than-light travel washed over them. And then stillness as the ship stabilized in the artificial dimension that allowed them to bypass the cosmic speed limit. "Course set for Proxima Station," Axel confirmed, checking the navigation system. 72 hours transit time." Kira released a breath she'd been holding. 3 days alone in a maintenance vessel. Luxurious. Despite her sarcasm, there was a lightness to her tone that hadn't been there before. Something like trust had begun to form between them. A fragile alliance born of necessity, but growing into something more complex. As the ship hurtled through FTL space, they took inventory of their limited supplies and established a watch rotation. The vessel's cramped living quarters forced a proximity that would have been unthinkable days earlier. During the quiet hours of their journey, they shared stories. Axel of his childhood on Earth's last protected forests. Kira of her clan's nomadic life, following the lunar cycles across different moons of the outer planets. They discovered unexpected commonalities. Both had lost parents young. Both had chosen service paths that honored their families' legacies. Both harbored doubts about the causes they'd fought for. "I believed we were bringing security and civilization," Axel admitted during one such conversation. The official narrative was that Lunarai clans were violent, regressive, opposed to human settlement because of primitive superstitions. Kira's expression softened. "And we were told humans were destroyers who saw moons as resources to be stripped, not living ecosystems to be respected. That you could never understand our ways because you evolved on a planet with only one moon, too distant to truly influence your development. Maybe both sides heard what justified their fears," Axel suggested, "and someone made sure those fears never subsided," Kira added, touching the data drive that contained their evidence. By the time Proxima Station appeared on their view screens, a massive military diplomatic complex orbiting a terraformed planet, their plan had crystallized. Commander Hayes was indeed conducting his monthly inspection. They would need to reach him directly, avoiding standard security protocols that would flag their fugitive status. "I can get us through the service decks," Axel explained. "There's a maintenance access point near the diplomatic quarter. From there, we can reach Hayes's temporary office. And if he doesn't believe us, or worse, if he's complicit," Axel had considered this possibility. Hayes is rigid, traditional, but honest. If he's involved, it's unwittingly. And he values evidence above rhetoric. Their arrival at Proxima required careful timing. They approached during a shift change in the docking control center, using maintenance codes that allowed them temporary clearance. The service decks were exactly as Axel remembered. A maze of utility corridors and environmental control rooms that paralleled the station's public spaces. They moved cautiously, Kira's senses alert for approaching personnel. Twice they froze in shadowed alcoves as security patrols passed. The diplomatic quarter was more heavily guarded, but as Axel had predicted, the service access points received minimal attention. The embassy section is through here, Axel whispered, indicating a secure door. Hayes' office would be on the executive level. Kira studied the security panel. Retinal scanner. I can't bypass that. You don't need to. Axel replied, stepping forward. My clearance was revoked when I was arrested, but my biometrics are still in the system. The question is whether they've been flagged. He leaned toward the scanner, pulse quickening as the blue light swept across his retina. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft chime, the door unlocked. I knew it, Axel said with quiet satisfaction. Hayes ordered my arrest, but he didn't process full security revocation. He left me a back door. Or it's a trap, Kira cautioned, her hand resting on the stunner at her hip. Only one way to find out. The embassy section was elegantly appointed, a stark contrast to the utilitarian corridors they'd navigated. At this late hour, most offices were empty, diplomatic staff having retired to their quarters. They moved swiftly toward the executive level, Axel leading with confidence born of familiarity. Commander Hayes' office was located at the end of a curved hallway, the Earth Alliance emblem prominently displayed on the door. Light spilled from beneath it. He was working late, as was his habit. Ready? Axel asked, his hand poised to knock. Kira nodded, tension evident in her posture. Axel rapped sharply on the door. A gruff voice responded, Enter. Commander Hayes looked exactly as Axel remembered. Silver-haired, broad-shouldered, with the perpetual expression of someone who had seen too much conflict. His surprise at seeing Axel quickly transformed into alarm when Kira entered behind him. Hayes reached for the security alert on his desk, but Axel raised his hands in a placating gesture. Sir, please, 30 seconds. That's all I ask. Perhaps it was their former relationship or simple curiosity. But Hayes hesitated, his finger hovering over the alert button. 29 seconds, he growled. Axel spoke rapidly, outlining their discovery, the Dravak-Vex connection, the manipulated weapons shipments, the evidence of deliberate provocation on both sides of the human-lunar eye conflict. You expect me to believe this conspiracy theory? Hayes demanded when Axel finished. Based on information you obtained while escaping lawful custody with a known enemy combatant? The evidence speaks for itself. Axel insisted, placing the data drive on Hayes' desk. Review it. Verify it independently. All I ask is that you look before dismissing it. Hayes eyed the drive skeptically, then shifted his gaze to Kira. And why would a Lunar Eye operative bring this information to a human embassy? Because my people are dying in a manufactured conflict. Kira replied evenly. Because someone is profiting from our mutual destruction. Because sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your ally. Something in her dignified response seemed to register with Hayes. He picked up the data drive, inserted it into his secure terminal, and began reviewing the contents. His expression remained impassive, but Axel, who knew him well, detected subtle signs of growing concern. This would implicate officials at the highest levels. Hayes finally said, his voice measured. If authentic, it suggests a conspiracy spanning years. It's authentic, Axel assured him. And it continues. The latest intelligence suggests a major operation planned against both human and lunar eye interests, designed to escalate the conflict beyond diplomatic resolution. Hayes leaned back in his chair, studying them both. Why come to me? Why not release this publicly? Because public release would cause chaos without direction. Axel explained. We need coordinated action from legitimate authorities on both sides. And you trust me to be that authority? Hayes asked, genuine curiosity in his tone. I trust you to do what's right once you know the truth. Axel replied simply. A long moment of silence followed. Then Hayes reached a decision, nodding once before activating his communication panel. Security. This is Commander Hayes. Protocol Indigo. My office, immediately. Kira tensed, but Axel placed a restraining hand on her arm. Protocol Indigo is for internal threats to the embassy. He explained quietly. He's bringing his most trusted people. Within minutes, Hayes's office was filled with senior security personnel, all looking askance at Kira but maintaining professional discipline. Hayes briefed them concisely, assigning verification tasks for the evidence Axel and Kira had provided. If this checks out, Hayes concluded, we move against the conspirators immediately. Full coordination with Lunar Eye authorities will be essential. An alert interrupted them. The embassy's security system had detected unauthorized vessels approaching the station. Dravak. Kira surmised, her ears flattening. They must have tracked our transport. Hayes moved with decisive efficiency. Implement embassy lockdown protocols, alert station security, and get me a direct channel to the Lunar Eye delegation. Tell them it's regarding joint security concerns. Sir, one of the security officers interjected. The Lunar Eye delegation is already here. They arrived yesterday for the preliminary peace talks. This was news to Axel. Hayes caught his questioning look and explained. Back-channel negotiations. Not public knowledge yet. Their delegation is housed in the East Wing. Convenient, Axel observed. Or concerning, depending on whether our conspirators knew about these talks. Hayes's expression darkened with realization. If they did, this station would be a perfect target. Both delegations in one location. The implications hung heavily in the air. Before anyone could respond, the station's general alarm activated. A piercing wail that indicated imminent threat. Security breach in Docking Bay 3, announced the automated system. Unknown hostiles have entered the station. All personnel implement emergency protocols. The attack had begun. Hayes's security team mobilized immediately, coordinating with station forces. Against protocol. Hayes insisted that Axel and Kira accompany him to the station's command center. Your intelligence on these attackers may prove crucial, he explained as they hurried through now crowded corridors. And frankly, I want you where I can see you until all this is verified. The command center was a hive of controlled chaos. Officers reporting breaches across multiple sectors. Security teams deploying to critical areas. On the main display, surveillance footage showed armed figures advancing methodically through the station. Not just Dravak, Kira noted. Studying the attackers. Those are Vex operatives, the insignia on their tactical gear. They're converging on the diplomatic quarter, Hayes observed grimly. As we suspected. Reports confirmed their fears. The attack was a coordinated strike targeting both Earth and Lunar Eye delegations. The peace talks, which might have led to discovery of the very conspiracy Axel and Kira had uncovered, were to be violently terminated. We need to reach the Lunar Eye delegation, Kira insisted. My clan elder, Thorin, leads it. He'll have brought warriors. They can help defend the station. Hayes hesitated only briefly before nodding. Morgan, go with her. Coordinate with their security. We need a unified defense. As they rushed toward the East Wing, the sounds of conflict grew louder. energy weapon discharges, the distinctive crack of kinetic weapons, shouted orders. They rounded a corner to find a firefight in progress, station security pinned down by advancing Vex operatives. Without discussion, Axel and Kira joined the defense. Their movements complemented each other with surprising fluidity, Axel providing covering fire, while Kira used her superior speed to flank their opponents. Kira identifying threats that Axel's human senses missed. Axel applying GSF tactical protocols that created openings for Kira's more aggressive fighting style. They broke through to the Lunar delegation's quarters to find a similar battle underway. Clan warriors, distinctive in their ceremonial but functional armor, were defending a central chamber where elders and diplomats had taken shelter. Kira called out in the Lunar language, a series of musical yips and growls that Axel couldn't interpret but that caused the warriors to pause in recognition. An exchange followed, Kira gesturing repeatedly toward Axel and the direction they had come from. Finally, a tall, white-furred Lunar with elaborate braids stepped forward. Despite his advanced age, he carried himself with unmistakable strength. "You are the human who escaped with Kira," he said in accented but precise English. "She says you bring evidence of treachery against both our peoples." Elder Thorin. Axel acknowledged with respect. "We discovered a conspiracy to perpetuate our conflict. The same forces behind that conspiracy are attacking this station to prevent peace negotiations." Thorin's amber eyes studied Axel intently. "She also says you answered her bite with your own. Is this true?" Axel glanced at Kira, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "It is." A low rumble, something like a chuckle, emerged from Thorin's chest. "In all my cycles, I never thought to see a human understand our ways so." Instinctively, the moment of cultural recognition was brief, interrupted by renewed attacks on their position. Working together, the human security forces and Lunar warriors established a defensive perimeter. Axel found himself fighting alongside beings he had once considered enemies, protecting diplomats from both species who represented hope for peace. The battle for Proxima Station raged for hours. The attackers, though well-equipped and trained, hadn't anticipated the unified resistance they encountered. Gradually, the combined forces pushed them back, securing sector after sector until the remaining Vex and Dravak operatives retreated to their vessels. In the aftermath, as medical teams tended to the wounded of both species, Commander Hayes and Elder Thorin met formally for the first time, not across a negotiating table, but in the station's security center, reviewing evidence of the conspiracy that had nearly destroyed them all. "The data is conclusive," Hayes admitted, displaying the verified intelligence on the main screen. "Key officials on both sides have been compromised. Military actions that inflamed our conflict were orchestrated by these third parties, for profit and power," Thorin added grimly. "While our peoples bled, they accumulated wealth and influence. The evidence was broadcast across interplanetary networks, too public now to be suppressed or denied. Diplomatic channels that had been frozen for years suddenly hummed with activity, as both sides recognized the manipulation they had suffered. In the days that followed, Axel and Kira found themselves at the center of rapidly evolving events. Their fugitive status was officially expunged, replaced with commendations for service to interspecies peace. They were requested at countless briefings and debriefings, their unique perspective on the conspiracy valued by investigators from both species. During a rare, quiet moment, they found themselves on an observation deck overlooking the terraformed planet below. The silence between them was comfortable now, The hostility of their first meeting transformed into something neither had anticipated. "What happens now?" Axel finally asked. "You return to your clan. I return to GSF. Back to our separate worlds." Kira turned to face him, her amber eyes reflecting the starlight. "Is that what you want? To return to the way things were?" "I don't think that's possible anymore," he admitted. "Not after what we've seen, what we've learned. About the conspiracy, about each other." She stepped closer, her scent, now familiar, almost comforting, enveloping him. "My clan would say that blood bonds cannot be severed, that warriors who have tasted each other's essence are joined by forces beyond their understanding." "And what do you say?" Axel asked, his voice low. "I say that sometimes the universe has strange ways of bringing enemies together." Her hand reached up, fingers lightly tracing the now healing bite mark on his arm. "Sometimes a wound becomes a bridge. Wound." His own hand mirrored her action, touching the matching scar on her shoulder. Not the conventional start to a diplomatic relationship. "We are not conventional diplomats," she pointed out with a smile that revealed her canines, no longer threatening, but endearingly distinctive. 6 months later, on the newly established joint colony of New Harmony, Axel, Morgan, and Kira of the Lunar Eye clan stood together as cultural liaisons. The settlement represented a radical new approach. Humans and Lunar Eye living together, learning from each other, combining technologies and philosophies to create something stronger than either could achieve alone. Their living quarters reflected this integration. Human furniture alongside Lunar Eye artifacts, technological conveniences beside natural elements that honored lunar cycles. Their relationship had evolved into something neither species had vocabulary to properly describe, deeper than alliance, more complex than romance. A union that bridged biological and cultural divides. Ambassador Chandler wants our input on the new educational exchange program, Axel mentioned as they prepared for the day's meetings. Apparently, some human parents are concerned about Lunar Eye hunting rituals being taught to their children. Kira adjusted the formal garment that denoted her status as clan representative. "And Elder Thorin wishes to discuss human mining practices again. Some clan members worry about repeating past mistakes. Progress isn't always smooth." Axel acknowledged, helping her with a clasp she couldn't quite reach. His fingers lingered on her fur, still fascinated by its texture after all this time. "But it is progress," she replied, leaning briefly into his touch. "A year ago, these conversations would have been conducted through weapon targeting systems. As they walked through the colony's central plaza, a harmonious blend of human architecture and Lunar Eye organic design principles, they attracted glances from residents of both species. Their relationship remained a curiosity to many, a symbol to others, and an irritant to the few who clung to old prejudices. Dr. Reed's research team has published their findings on interspecies communication patterns," Kira noted, indicating a notification on her communication device. "She says our case study provided valuable insights." Axel smiled at the memory of the enthusiastic xenolinguist who had spent weeks documenting their unique communication methods. The blend of human verbal precision and Lunar Eye sensory cues they had developed. "Should we tell her the secret?" he asked playfully. "That sometimes understanding begins with a bite?" Kira's laugh, once so alien to him, now one of his favorite sounds, rang out in the morning air. Perhaps not in her academic paper. Some things are too primal for scientific journals. They reached the administrative complex where the day's negotiations awaited. Before entering, they paused, facing each other in a gesture that had become their private ritual. Kira tilted her head, exposing the scar on her shoulder. Axel mirrored the action, revealing his matching mark. No words were needed. The scars spoke of a journey from hostility to harmony, a reminder that bridges could be built in the most unexpected ways. As representatives from both species greeted them inside, Axel reflected on the strange path that had led them here. A prison cell, a moment of primal response, a conspiracy uncovered, a battle fought side by side. And now, a future neither could have imagined, one where ancient enemies discovered that what united them was stronger than what had divided them. The former GSF commander and the Lunar Eye operative had become something unprecedented, living proof that understanding could emerge from the most unlikely beginnings. That sometimes, when someone bites you, the most transformative response isn't to recoil or escalate, but to bite back, to engage on equal terms, to acknowledge the other as worthy of response. And in that acknowledgement, to find connection where only conflict had existed before.